The air in the room seemed to plummet 20 degrees the moment my mother-in-law spoke. The doctor says I only have 6 months left, Natalie announced, her voice trembling with just the right touch of fragility. It's terminal cancer. My hand froze halfway across the sketches I'd been showing Owen for our upcoming renovation. Through the bay window of our Victorian home, I caught Natalie's reflection in the glass. Her expression wasn't one of sorrow. No. Her face was sharp, calculating. Her gaze flicked over the crown molding and polished floors, as though she were silently measuring the square footage she'd been eyeing since the day we bought this house. That very room was supposed to become my art studio, something I'd dreamed of for 2 years, scraping together savings piece by piece to make it real. I don't want to spend my last days alone, she went on, lifting a crumpled tissue to dab at dry eyes. She had prepared even the prop in advance. Owen squeezed my hand, devastation etched across his face. Rachel, Mom should move in here. We can turn your studio into her bedroom. The pencil in my other hand snapped clean in two. My name is Rachel. I'm 34, an architectural designer. And this is how I fought to protect the home I'd built from the most elaborate deception I've ever faced. 2 years earlier, after my parents were killed in a car accident, I inherited their estate. Grief hollowed me out, but this house, this beautiful, time-worn Victorian, gave me something to hold on to. I'd walk through its door and instantly known. The front room, drenched in light, would be my studio. It was the first thing that made me ache for paintbrushes again. Natalie despised that. Not the house itself. She adored the house. She hated that it was mine in my name alone. She hated that I'd used my inheritance instead of funneling the money through her son, as she believed any proper wife should. Which doctor gave you this diagnosis? I asked carefully, setting the broken pencil down. Maybe we should consider a second opinion. Her grip tightened on her purse strap. Dr. Peterson. But I trust him completely. I nodded slowly. Dr. Peterson, the same doctor who had supposedly diagnosed her with an obscure tropical illness last year, just before Owen and I were set to leave for Italy. We had canceled the trip, of course, to care for her, only for her miraculous recovery 2 weeks later. I'll need time to think about this, I said, forcing calm into my voice. Owen shoved his chair back so hard the legs scraped the hardwood. Think about it? His voice cracked, disbelief raw. My mother is dying, Rachel. Where's your compassion? The kitchen light suddenly felt harsh, the walls pressing too close. 8 years married, and each time Natalie needed something, Owen chose her over me. Vacations abandoned, holidays rearranged, decisions overturned if she disapproved. Yes, I repeated, meeting his eyes. I need to think about it. This is my house, too. Natalie's lips curved in a sugary smile, venom beneath the sweetness. Actually, dear, since Owen is your husband, it's his house as well. And a son's first duty is to his mother. The satisfaction glinting in her eyes twisted my stomach. I knew that look. The same gleam she'd worn when urging Owen to contest my inheritance. The same triumphant spark when she spread rumors at church that I was flaunting my parents' death by buying this house. The deed is in my name alone, I said coldly. I bought it with my inheritance. Her smile flickered out. Owen looked at me as though I had suddenly become a stranger. But that's irrelevant, I pressed on. This is too important to rush. I walked out into the garden, the one I'd spent spring planting with hydrangeas, my mother's favorite flowers. I sat on the stone bench Owen and I had chosen together and pulled out my phone. Dr. Peterson's office. The receptionist answered after a moment. Yes, I said, steady but tense. I'm calling about a patient, Natalie Mitchell. A pause. Then, I'm sorry, but we have no record of a patient by that name. I thanked her, hung up, and stared out at the blooms glowing in the fading light. The air felt charged, alive against my skin. My suspicions had been right all along. I dialed my sister Vanessa, who worked as a nurse at County General. Can you check something for me? I asked. Natalie says she has terminal cancer, diagnosed by a Dr. Peterson, but his office has no record of her. 2 days later, I had my answer. Natalie hadn't stepped foot in any oncology office in the state. She hadn't been given a diagnosis. She hadn't been seen at all. Her story was a fabrication. For the next week, I watched her and Owen prepare as though it were all settled. She hauled in boxes, spoke with him about color palettes, measured window frames for curtains. Each carton she set down felt like another wedge driven between me and my husband. Owen, for his part, spoke to me as little as possible, treating my hesitation as though it were cruelty. Then came the family dinner. Of course, it was Natalie's suggestion. She insisted on inviting everyone, Owen's sisters, their spouses, uncles, aunts, cousins. I had cooked the meal myself, and the long dining table eyed, carefully restored, strained under the weight of the feast. But I knew what she was doing, staging a public cornering, a display meant to box me in where refusal would be impossible. Halfway through the meal, she rose, dabbing at her eyes with the perfect mimicry of grief. The clinking of silverware stilled as the room fell quiet. She announced her diagnosis, then thanked me sweetly for agreeing to let her move in. Around me, voices rang out in praise of Owen's devotion as a son. Natalie's eyes sparkled with triumph as she turned her gaze toward me. I placed my wineglass down, the soft clink echoing against the walnut surface. "I have something to say," I said evenly, my voice cutting through the silence. Natalie's smile widened. Indulgent, she thought I was about to yield. Instead, I reached for the folder I'd placed at my side and looked her straight in the eye for the first time in years. "I spoke with Dr. Peterson's office," I began, "and with every oncologist in this state." The blood drained from Natalie's face so fast, it was as though the air had been sucked out of the room. Her hand, halfway to her water glass, went rigid. I don't understand," she faltered, her fingers visibly trembling. Dr. Peterson would never disclose patient files. The dining room had gone still, heavy like the air just before a storm breaks. "That's odd," I replied calmly, "because Dr. Peterson retired 3 years ago. His office doesn't exist anymore." Owen shoved back his chair so abruptly it screeched against the floor. "Rachel, what is this?" I opened my folder and slid out the papers I had assembled with Vanessa's help. The overhead light glared against the hospital letterheads as I spread them on the table. "I checked with every cancer center within 100 miles, I said, my heartbeat steady despite the silence around me. Vanessa used her hospital credentials to reach the medical records departments at all 5 major cancer facilities in this region. Not one of them has any record of a Natalie Mitchell being diagnosed. Not one shows her even being tested." The room erupted into hushed murmurs. Elizabeth, Natalie's sister, leaned forward, brow furrowed. "Natalie, is this true?" "She's lying," Natalie shouted, springing to her feet so violently her chair toppled behind her. "She's twisting everything to make you hate me, because she doesn't want me in that house of hers." My hands remained steady as I pushed the documents across the table. "Actually, I'm not lying. These are the records. You're welcome to call and confirm for yourselves." Owen snatched up the papers, his grip crumpling the edges. This has to be a mistake. Mom wouldn't do this." "But she would," Kate said quietly from across the table. "Remember the pneumonia she faked before your wedding? Or the heart condition when you got that offer in Denver?" Natalie's mask cracked, fury twisting her features. "Catherine, how dare you? I'm your mother." "Yes, you are," Kate answered softly, but with firmness. "And I love you. But this cannot go on. The lies, the games, the endless drama. It has to stop." Owen collapsed back into his chair, staring blankly at the paperwork in his hands. Silence stretched across the table until at last he whispered, "It was the house, wasn't it? You wanted the house." That was when Natalie's composure shattered. Her carefully rehearsed performance crumbled as she spat out the truth. "Of course I wanted the house," she snapped. "Why should she have it? She got to use her inheritance to buy that beautiful place, and I'm trapped in my tiny ranch home. It isn't fair." "Not fair," I echoed, my voice cutting clean through the tension. "Like when you tried to push Owen into contesting my inheritance, or when you told people at church I was parading my parents' death by buying this house." Gas circled the table. Natalie hadn't shared those pieces of her story with anyone else. Owen's head whipped up, disbelief etched on his face. You did what?" "She needed to be humbled," Natalie hissed, her tone venomous. "Always so perfect, so self-reliant. A real wife would have handed that money over to her husband." Like you handed yours to Dad? Elizabeth cut in, her voice sharp. Oh, wait, that never happened. Is that what this is really about? That you never had an inheritance at all? The truth landed like a weight no one could ignore. Natalie's face buckled, not with the rehearsed tears she'd shown before, but with genuine collapse. Her web of control had finally come undone. The manipulations laid bare for all to see. Years of envy and bitterness seemed to pour out of her all at once. I just wanted, Natalie began, then faltered, her face tightening as though even she couldn't find the words. You wanted control, Kate cut in, her voice cool and steady. Like always. But this time, you went too far. Pretending to have cancer? That's beyond cruel, Mom. Not just to Rachel, but to every single person actually fighting for their life. Owen stood up again, his shoulders slumping under the weight of the night. I think it's best if everyone goes home, he said quietly. Then, turning to Natalie, his tone firmed. Mom, I'll drive you. But Owen, she tried to argue, her voice catching. No, Mom, not this time. The family rose one by one, each carefully avoiding Natalie's pleading eyes. I stayed rooted in my chair, hands locked tightly in my lap. Elizabeth lingered for a moment, her touch soft on my shoulder. I'm sorry, she murmured. We should have recognized it sooner. Then she, too, was gone. I collected the plates, still nearly full, the sound of cutlery clinking strangely loud in the hollow quiet. A few minutes later, I heard the front door click shut as Owen guided his mother out. His car engine rumbled, then faded down the street. The house felt impossibly still. I didn't know if he'd come back tonight, or if we could ever repair what had cracked between us. But as I stood in my kitchen, in my home, I felt something strange and new relief. The secret was exposed, the web of lies unraveled, and with it, the burden of years of manipulation slipped from my shoulders. I drifted to the window overlooking the garden. The sunset spilled coral and gold across the horizon. The hydrangeas my mother once adored had just started to bloom. For the first time in a long time, I felt certain of one thing. I had done the right thing. My parents had raised me to stand tall. And tonight, finally, I had. An hour later, the sound of a key scraping in the lock jolted me. The door creaked open, and there stood Owen, exhaustion etched deep into his face, alongside something else. Shame. I dropped her off, he said hoarsely. She cried the entire drive, told me I was choosing you over her. I said nothing, only watched as he stepped into the kitchen, pausing as though the room itself was foreign to him. He brushed a hand along the marble counter we had chosen together, his voice low. But this isn't about choosing between you and her, is it? It's about choosing truth over lies. I've been blind, Rachel. So blind. I leaned against the sink, folding my arms. Yes, you have. Every time she had some sudden emergency right before something important. The tropical fever before Italy, he muttered, shaking his head. The heart scare when I was offered the Denver job. And now this. She knew exactly what she was doing, I whispered. She always has. For the first time in years, Owen's gaze locked with mine, steady and unflinching. How did you stay? Watching her twist everything, knowing I believed her every time. Because I loved you, I said simply. But Owen, I can't do it anymore. I won't. He sank into a chair, his face ashen. I don't expect you to. What she did, faking cancer, his voice broke. My auntie died last year. From the real thing. How could Mom weaponize that? I slid into the chair across from him, the gravity of the night pressing down on us both. Your mother needs help. Real help. This isn't normal behavior. He nodded. Kate's already started looking into family therapists. She thinks Mom got worse after Dad died. The constant need to control everything, to make herself the center. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the ticking of the kitchen clock. Then, slowly, Owen reached his hand across the table, palm open. I don't deserve it, he said softly, but I want to try. To be the husband you married, the partner you deserve. Not just the son my mother molded me into. I looked at his hand, hesitating. It won't be easy. Boundaries have to be real this time. I know, he said quickly. No more sudden emergencies, no more guilt trips, no more letting her dictate our life. And we should do counseling too. Together. I need to understand how I let this happen. How I hurt you by putting her first. Tears filled my eyes, not of sorrow but of relief. This was the man I had chosen years ago, finally emerging again. Okay, I whispered, placing my hand in his. We'll try. The months that followed were rocky. Natalie swung between tear-streaked apologies and sharp accusations, but we held our ground. Owen threw himself into therapy, sometimes with me, sometimes alone, unraveling years of ingrained habits. I poured my energy into finishing my art studio, flooding it with canvas, light, and color. Sometimes while painting, I thought back to that family dinner, to how close I'd come to losing not just my home, but myself. But then I'd glance at the peace surrounding us, the honesty, the genuine connection rebuilding between Owen and me, and I knew the fight had been worth it. Eventually, Natalie agreed to counseling too, though only after Kate and Elizabeth issued a hard ultimatum. Progress was slow but real. Last week, she even sent me a handwritten card, a simple apology, but more authentic than anything she'd given me in years. Owen and I finally made it to Italy. We mailed postcards to his mother from each city, proof that we were living freely, joyfully, together. When we returned, the house was exactly as we'd left it. No sudden crises, no disruptions, just home. Yesterday, while tending the garden, I noticed the first shoots of summer breaking through the soil. It struck me then, like those flowers, our family was pushing toward something new. Not perfect, not flawless, but honest, real. The house stood the same as it always had, yet everything inside felt different. It was no longer just my refuge. It was ours, mine and Owen's, built at last on trust, on truth, on something Natalie's manipulations could never touch.